And here, let me record on my side just for redundancy's sake.
Oh, that would be very good.
Go ahead and say yes to the request. You'll get,
Okay.
and there
Rude.
you go.
There we go. So a double recording. That's the first time.
Actually, and that helped them because they lost part of their video, and so they actually messaged me an hour later. It's like, could you send us a copy of your video? It's like, yeah, sure. I've been burned. You only have to get burned once or twice on a recording, where someone says, "Oh yeah, by the way, my recording didn't take." It's like, crap.
I got thrown out of a group about 10 times for misuse of protocol protocol, I suppose.
Yeah.
So um, I'm very careful now.
Yeah, I got hit. You'll appreciate this. I got because I have one strike on my channel. Um, what was it from? Oh yeah, it was. I had a copyright thing, but I got hit. I they because they go through your back catalog now, and I got hit for interview 16, which goes all the way back to 2015, 9 years ago, 9.5 years ago. Why? Because I was talking about autism.
Yeah.
And because you remember that predates the pandemic by years. And it's like, okay, what was I talking about? But the only thing I talked about as far as shots in the arm, because you can say shots in the arm, shots in the arm was autism. And I have a strong opinion on that. And nope, we're gonna hit you for that one too. It's like, really, bastards.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's really things might change in the next 10 years. Who knows? Yes.
yeah, well, we gotta 10 years in 4 weeks. We have to deal with the election over here, which we can talk about. Um,
Well, can we? I mean,
Oh no, you can. They rolled that back. So there were three things when the Senate was trying to curb things, or when the government was trying to curb things. They said you couldn't talk about health related, like snake oil, right? Things that you couldn't make you couldn't make a even if you were a doctor, you couldn't make a medical opinion online about anything, pro or con. So you couldn't say, I know this pill that stops everything, and you can't condemn anything. You can't talk about false flags. You couldn't say, oh, this death. If anyone died during an event that the news media stamps as official, you can't criticize that. There's all sorts of those. And then you couldn't, again, for whatever reason, you couldn't talk about the 2020 election. And then at the end of 2023, they rolled that back for good reason. Because think about it, everyone's going to be referencing this year, the 2020 election, which they did. And so it's like, if we don't do this, we're going to be banning channels constantly. First timers that reference it, and it would just be a nightmare for the algorithms. So they rolled it back. Now, what happens this year? Well, I mean, I can talk about this year. I've talked about it for weeks and months, and nobody says anything because it's all speculation right now until it happens. But it is going to be historic. You wait. I will make
Well,
predictions for you. Anyway,
I've heard that there's a tsunami coming your way.
a what?
A tsunami. What's
Oh,
it?
a tsunami?
Yeah,
But yeah, you don't pronounce the T. Um,
of immigrants at the Mexican border.
it is one of the possibilities, which is, um, if you remember, you might be old enough to remember the movie Red Dawn, the original one with Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen and those guys. That was the opening premise of the show, which they didn't even talk about. They just glossed over it, which was that the whole Red Dawn scenario was that the United States, if you want to attack the United States, it's not a big secret, by the way. If you can do it, you cut up through Mexico and Canada and try to split the country in two at the Colorado at the Rockies. And Well, again, we can talk about it. So, are
Yeah,
we officially starting? I mean, I'm assuming
yeah,
everything's
yeah.
recorded
Okay.
anyway.
Let's talk about something completely different then.
Sure, sure. Go
Um,
ahead.
whatever you want to talk about. Um, Personally, I had a look at it today, and um, the language thing about flat Earth is very very strong because unless you learn the language, you'll never understand what flat Earth is about.
Right.
And so the first thing is learning the language. Little things like what is it? The the oh, it's gone completely out of my head.
That's right. Something about the solar system, like, well, I mean, there's verbiage, for example. The reason why flat earthers can't be infiltrated, we have never had a content creator that was a troll, right? They're very obvious. You were either for flat Earth or you're against flat Earth. And no one has ever in 9 years snuck in, pretended to be flat Earth, and then went the other way. You know what I mean? So because you can't, I've seen this at conferences, what you were talking about, the verbiage, the language. So you'll like the one of the easiest, one of the dead giveaways is if they use the word round. You can tell if anyone uses the word round, it's one of the first things you learn, which is we don't say round. We say ball, we say globe, we say sphere. Round could be a dinner table, it could be a hubcap, it could be a dinner plate. And once you learn it, you done. It's almost impossible to forget. Or heliocentric, or anything regarding the solar system, or the curvature of the Earth, or the Coriolis effect, or gravity, or the vacuum, or the vacuum of space, or anything regarding the planets. All the language we use, the combination of the language, can't be faked. For whatever reason, if you don't believe in flat Earth, you have a really hard time rolling those terms off your tongue and creating sentences and paragraphs and trying to sound authentic. And again, the people when we do conferences, it's funny because every once in a while someone will show up there, and when they're talking, in fact, I'll give you an even better example. We were doing parties. We still are. We do meetups down in Los Angeles at this beach house, and there we have doormen, people at the door that instead of asking for like a passphrase, it's like, normally, to get into like a club, it's like, you give a passphrase. It's like, do you know any good white basketball players? And the other guy says, there are no good white basketball players, something like that. And then, no, but that's not what we say. We say something like, so what's your favorite thing about flat Earth? If you're not into flat Earth, you don't have a favorite thing. You cannot make up one on the fly. And that's how we let people in the door for those gatherings, and it's fascinating to me. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I ramble.
Okay, so the words I was looking for was atmospheric deck of opacity,
There you go.
which if you don't understand it, if you haven't really thought about it, it means nothing.
Right.
Yeah, it's word
Are,
salad.
right.
Atmospheric deck of opacity. What the hell is that?
Are you a Nathan Oakley guy?
Um, no, I wouldn't say so. Um, I don't really follow anyone specifically apart from Witsit
Ah,
and Jaren, yeah,
sure. I
and
was going to say the deck of opacity sounds like something Witsit would use, but I've also heard, if I'm not mistaken, I think I've heard Nathan Oakley say it. So that's why I had to ask.
oh, it came from David Weiss. If you watch that video I sent you, yeah, we talk about it there. Yeah,
Right,
it,
right. You're
it,
right. David uses it. He doesn't use it as much as he uses other things, but if the interview goes long enough, yes, he will use it. It's a good point.
yeah. So the language thing is very important, and somebody said something um, on the internet which was spot on. Um, they were arguing with a hardcore uh, globy guy, and he just he just wrote, "Look, Flat Earth is a club, and you're just not in it. Yeah, and I think that about sums it up. It's like alpine skiing. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah, not everybody wants to do it. And another good analogy would be like they call it spelunking.
Cave, yeah, cave diving.
Cave diving. Yeah. Now that's something that not a lot of people are into. It's kind of
No,
dangerous and it's underground and it's a rabbit hole.
right.
But it's great. Yeah. If you
Yeah,
if you can get into that sport, if you can get into that club, then you're onto a winner.
right.
Yeah. And
However, flat Earth tends to be a little more because it's a mystery. People are drawn to it, like any other conspiracy, right? Any other rabbit hole. But it's different in that it's so big and so ridiculous in terms of scope, right? Again, it hits people in the face so hard, the five stages of acceptance. It's one of the few conspiracies where the five stages of acceptance is almost default, right? Where first it's like there is no way that thing could be real, right? Followed by I'm pissed off that you're even bringing it up to me, followed by it's like, well, maybe this part's true, but what about this? Followed by there's no, the depression and then finally acceptance. And
yeah.
it tends to, again, you can't tell with any given person how long it's going to take. I've seen people flip in less than an hour, mostly women, which is weird, but they are more open minded, I guess. And I've seen some people take months. I mean, hell, I took 8 9 months, but it was different for me because I didn't have a lot of content to go off of. Nowadays, most people, I think, the average is less than a month on their own quietly. It's not like they announce it to people when it happens. Like difference would be like Owen Benjamin, who I'm sure did it live. Did live streams, and you could see his brain melting in real time, which was wonderful to see, and very very rare. But most people do it quietly at home, and even when they get it, they don't talk about it. There was a wonderful compilation by a channel called Robot Polisher. He just put it out there where he was showing different celebrities. And the fun thing was the American football. They were interviewing one of the American football guys, and he was saying, "Look," he goes, "I'm not kidding." He goes, "You if you did an anonymous poll, anonymous in any American football locker room, he goes 15% of that locker room is flat Earth, and
Hang on,
it's
about 15 or 50?
15, which is amazing. Again, it's pretty amazing considering what you're looking at there. But with American sports, it does not surprise me because they have a lot of downtime. Right? These guys are traveling a lot. I mean, especially I would think there'd be more with like baseball teams and basketball teams because they're traveling even more. I mean, baseball's traveling constantly, and they have a lot of time in their hands. And now it's like, what do we do? Do we watch a movie or do we watch some YouTube rabbit hole? And I mean, that's how Kyrie got into it, and Kyrie Irving basketball
Yeah,
some years ago.
there are a lot of sportsmen that have come out saying, yeah, the earth is flat.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't take much to do to convince somebody if they have the right frame of mind going in. Sports guys, I think, are pretty much open minded. Plus, sports guys are superstitious by default. It's weird, right? They've got so they're more, I think, open minded as opposed to someone who's got their again. If you have a bachelor's, I don't know what it is over in the UK, but if you have a bachelor's degree in a physical science or a master's degree in anything, and forget about a PhD, you're way more resistant just because of the conditioning. I go, look, if you have a bachelor's in geology, you're probably not going to get into this anytime soon.
I was
And
speaking to a guy I contacted through LinkedIn.
yeah,
He's got a PhD, he's an engineer,
yeah,
and I wanted to know what his sort of opinion was on flat Earth. And he said, well, at the end of the interview, he said, well, um, there's as much possibility that is flat that it is a globe. So he was on the fence, but at least he was saying he said he's been following it since 2014. Yeah, which is even before you started, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. That would have been in the Matt Boyle and Eric Dubay
yeah,
days.
yeah.
Yeah, and why? And I would think a lot of scientists would be curious about it privately. I'm a little surprised he talked about it openly with you, because the peer groups, when you get up of that high of academic level, are very, very strong. One of the scariest words ever in the academic world is ostracized, which is once you get up there, all you care about is your circle of people and being published, and the occasional grant money thing. That's a whole nother level. And so when you reach that point, like anything, it's like in cliques in school. When a group thinks something is cool and you don't, or you think something is cool and they don't, peer pressure is an amazingly powerful thing. And
I had that when I was taking my master's, in fact, because I didn't really agree with the professor, um, and he wasn't too happy about the way I was doing things, and he said, "Look, this is your last chance to come back into the fold."
there you go.
And if I'd have sort of knuckled down, I wasn't capable of knuckling down because I couldn't see the things the way that he did. Yes,
Right,
my common sense was against what he was talking about.
right.
Yes, um, and he didn't like the idea that science was more open than closed. Yes, so
Yeah.
it was difficult. So I didn't get a master's, but I did get a very good first year. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I can see the other side, which is there's an old saying, which is conformity builds empires. And it does. If most of the people did not conform to at least the basic structure of society and the basic ideas, then it would be chaos and it would fall apart. However, in this case, yeah, it changes things, but and because people will say, well, why would you hide it? What's the biggest reason why you would hide it? And lots of people say, well, it's power and control and stuff like that. And I've been fond of saying, well, yeah, but in our case, it's more bad timing than anything else because we didn't even figure it out, not for sure, until about 1960. And then the question is, if society's already built, everything's pretty much laid out, all the borders are drawn, and the infrastructure is the way you want it. Do you mess that up potentially?
well,
And
1960s is very quick, really, because when you think about the Antarctic Treaty only came into effect in 59.
right,
Yeah.
right,
So that's sort of hang on, what's going on? Yeah. So that's that's amazingly fast in the
yeah,
60s, really.
yeah, yeah, and it is not that long ago. The 60s was not that long ago, but I get it, which is do you take the risk and tell the people in 1960 what you pretty much think things are, or do you hold on to it? I mean, come on, that's power 101, which is you hold on. I mean, that's information is power, always has been. It's the most valuable thing that's out there because you can do so much with it. And it's like, no, we're going to hold on to this for as long as we can, and then we're going to figure out what to do with it to where it benefits us the most. I totally get it. I have been fond of saying for years. I said, look, in 1960, would I have told if I would have sat in on that Illuminati meeting, would I have raised my hand? It's like I disagree. No, I would have said, nope, good move. Don't tell him. And the reason I say that is because of the Roswell thing. The Roswell thing was 1947, right? And when that first, remember, television really wasn't a thing in 1947. So that was just radios and newspaper. When that started circulating around the country and it went fast, there was panic. There were people starting to ramp up, going, "Oh, this could be something amazing." And that's when the Pentagon, of course, when they figured out, 2-3 days later, it's like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on in New Mexico? Get somebody on the phone now. And they had to walk that thing back fast. In fact, walking back, ran it back fast. Oh no, it's a weather balloon. We're gonna throw.
It probably was just a weather balloon.
Are you saying that sarcastically, or are you? Oh yeah, it probably was. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
no,
Probably was.
no, thinking
Oh,
about
do you actually
my,
believe it was a weather balloon?
when I think about it, the way they lie and they go back on their lie and uh, there's sort of a double lie and a double cross and everything. You think,
It uh,
hang on,
uh,
it might have just been a weather balloon.
it there is of course the possibility that it was a double double. Yes, absolutely. Where they set up the story to see what the public would do. However, I'm a big believer in good writing, and the writing, if that was the case, the writing was too good. Meaning, if you've never seen the TV movie that was made on it in the 1990s called Roswell with Kyle MacLachlan and Martin Sheen and some others, it was brilliant. Which was everyone responded the way you would think, which was a farm. Remember, New Mexico in the 40s, pretty empty. By the way, there was not much going. In fact, I don't know when New Mexico became a state, but there was not much happening in New Mexico. So when a farmer goes out on his land and sees just a freaking swath of damage, and he knows full well that there's an Air Force base in town, not that far away, and he goes into town and goes straight to the sheriff's department. It's like, will you tell those Air Force such and suches to stop doing test flights and clean up the shit that's on my lawn, right?
Yeah.
The sheriff's department goes out there. They don't know what to make of it. They go back to the Air Force base, and then they go back out, and the Air Force base is like, "Are we testing something that it's not
Yeah.
from our base? Where the hell?" So
There's always the other possibility, you know, they say, was it ours or was it theirs? Was it one of our flying saucers or was it really a UFO?
sure, sure,
Yeah.
but
So, now,
in 19
I know someone who back in the 60s
yeah,
says he saw in the middle of London a UFO flying over him. Yeah. And everybody, or a whole group of people in London saw the UFO flying over, the lights, and it was so quiet and everything.
right.
And okay, so that could have been one of ours. It could have been a balloon. It could have been something completely different.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
In
So
the 1960s, yes. Do I think, they started reverse engineering things immediately? You bet. But in 1947, no. It was too new. We weren't. Come on, World War II had just ended, and our tech was not very good. However, that being said, do I think, I'm a big believer in all sorts of different things, but do I think that the Germans got a hold of did they have a Roswell moment in the mid 30s and reverse engineered stuff and then proceeded to use it, for their war machine, going into World War II? I'd buy that in a second. Their stuff was so good compared to ours. I mean, the fact they were flying jets at the end of World War II. One flew over my grandfather's artillery group when he was over there, and he goes, men were crying because they didn't know what to make of it. They're like, what the hell? What are we going to do against this?
isn't there video footage of a group of UFOs flying over the White House?
There is. It's not. I'm not going to say it's not credible, but it's so grainy. And of course, there was
It
you
could
can
have
look
been
up.
balloons. Yeah.
Might have been the battle for Los Angeles. That was actually more interesting to me. The UFO flew off the Los Angeles coast during the World War II, and because everyone thought it was an enemy craft, they were shooting, firing anti-aircraft at it all day, weren't doing anything. Um, the little the, or how let's do something basic. How about the Foo Fighters? Right? Where the band got its name, right? Which was orbs, little small glowing, we call them drones of their day, right? Bladeless drones that were flying and following both bombers from Allied and Axis, right? And both sides thought it was the other guys. It's like, I don't know what's chasing us, but apparently it doesn't have weapons. And so, both sides are like, well, somebody's got something. But do I think it was, them? Probably.
Yeah,
Why
well,
not?
yeah. Was it made on Earth, or was it made in China? Yeah.
Well, come on, China. You know full well that China's tech. I mean, come on. My grandparents. I remember when they went to China in 1980, back in the day, and there was still an awful lot of bicycles in
Yeah.
China.
If they actually find a UFO now, I wouldn't be surprised if on the bottom it had "Made in China" on it.
If you find one now, sure, sure, why not?
And
Anyway, but yeah, do I believe in UFOs? Yes. Do I think they're from Mars or Venus or Jupiter? No. Um, I think they're either in here with us or they're from other versions of,
we've
of this.
definitely got the technology to do that, right from
Yeah.
Tesla, right from Tesla's day.
The
Yeah,
what?
from Tesla.
Oh yeah. What, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Yeah. Tesla. Tesla is one of those guys where I almost think that I almost think he was a hacker of his day. I mean, I don't think he was supposed to be here. He was way, way, the stuff that, I'm sure if you've read stuff on him, the stuff that he was coming up with, it wasn't ahead of his time. It was light years, light years past. I mean, come on, an earthquake machine that was smaller than a cell phone, an actual ray gun that he took the White House and torched a sheep with it. And they're like, yeah, what do you want us to do with this? We can't let this thing out,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
or wireless.
You say he was ahead of his time, but if he had simply a clairvoyant connection,
There you go.
yeah,
Sure. He had
um,
access to
something
stuff.
ESP, extrasensory perception,
Yeah.
that
He
that
he was way, I mean, come on, the stories, and I totally believe it, that when he died, the government came in and just emptied his apartment. Why wouldn't you? In fact, I would tell people, it's like, when he dies, we get everything. Everything right now. In fact, little side story really fast. One of my favorite stories, a lot of people don't know, there's a wonderful little photograph of these two, was he was friends at the end of his life with Mark Twain. And one of my favorite stories of all time is an unpublished, never got published, but the raw manuscript script was out there. It's called Mysterious Stranger by Mark Twain, and it's a fascinating little book. I think it was kind of inspired by the dark side, because Mark Twain was a humorist. He wrote pretty upbeat stuff, and
yeah,
this one was
amazing
about
stuff. Yeah.
the devil going to Europe. I think it was in the 1500s, and talking with children and giving children lessons on how the world really works by showing how he tempts adults and like cutting them deals. The basically the whole the devil cutting somebody a deal and all these different deals and how they went down. It's like, wow, so interesting. But anyway, I think it was partially inspired by Twain hanging out with Tesla.
Well, I've got a nice Mark Twain quote for you.
Oh, please.
Okay. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yep. One of my favorites. And that is a timeless quote that is used in journalism today. It has never changed, which is every producer will tell you. I mean, come on, the things I've been doing over the last 10 years, I have learned a lot when it comes to media, how things work, which is it doesn't matter what the truth is. What does the public want to hear? What does the public want to see? It's like, if it's a boring story, but it's factual, who cares, right? The public wants drama. The public wants controversy, which is why I've been criticizing, why I haven't watched American football in years, for example, which is especially over here when it's tougher to do with normal football, your football, which is when there's enough money in a certain sport, when it gets up to certain money levels, it's not about the sport anymore. It's about the money, and it's about the audience. So the audience doesn't want to see the best team at the end in the finals. They want to see the most interesting team at the finals. They want to see the most dramatic. They want to see showmanship. They don't want to see the Detroit Pistons. They want to see Michael Jordan. They want to see LeBron James in the final. It's one of the oldest things. And come on, sports. When it comes to your point, I mean, come on, sports have been rigged ever since they could be rigged. Going back to the old days of boxing. Boxing was one of the earliest sports ever to rig. Come on, a rigged boxing match? How can you prove it? You can't. It's almost impossible to do. And because that wouldn't happen.
Do you think that rigging sports has been going on longer than rigging elections?
No, I think they're hand in hand. You're absolutely right. Rigging elections
Because
is,
as far as I
but
know,
rigging elections is a little different. Rigging sports is to how much money you can get out of the audience. Rigging elections is just power plays behind the scenes, and they don't care what the public wants. They that is just power players doing what they do. And you're right, which is the best candidate rarely wins in elections. It's who's got the connections, who's got the money behind them.
what I've heard is that we haven't had a good election since maybe since the 60s.
Sure. Oh wait, in your place in UK or the Americas?
Well, perhaps all over the world.
Probably. I
Yeah.
mean, you're right. Here's a great quote for you. So a lot of people don't know that John Kennedy wasn't supposed to win in the 60s, right? It was supposed to be Richard Nixon the first time. A young Richard Nixon ran against him and lost. And there's a great quote, credit to, I think it was Joe Kennedy, his father, who was, made up his money through bootlegging during Prohibition. And the line was, because Jack was, it's like, why are you watching the election numbers so closely? And his father says, because I'm not paying for a landslide, which was a great line, which is like, we don't have to have a blowout. All you have to do is win. It's like, why? If
Who said that?
John Kennedy's dad, years later, it kind of filtered out there because they were supposed to build this empire, which was, it was supposed to be, the oldest son was Joseph. He was supposed to be president first, then Jack, then Bobby. And his dad actually had a really good formula. He's going, oh, okay. He's going, you want to be president? First off, he goes, you want the easiest way? Be a war hero. Doesn't matter if you're a real hero, but you do have to serve and you got to get over there. And so he went over to England, Joseph, to be one of those American fighter pilots, because we sent American fighter pilots over to fight during the first parts of the war. He got shot down. He died. And so it's like, all right, Jack, you're up. So, Jack had to do his thing, but he was in, I think it was the Navy. There was, he supposedly rescued some guys in some Navy thing. I don't know if it was true. Doesn't matter if it was true because the story, power perceived is power achieved. And that's, then he became president, but that didn't end well, as you know. And then Bobby was supposed to come in right behind him. Bobby, who was attorney general. And then Bobby, but that was the message. Jack dying was a message to Bobby. It's like, don't even think about it. So when Bobby just announced it at the podium, right? At this hotel, he didn't even make it out of the hotel. It's like he was walking through the kitchen and he was just machine gunned down. It's like, oh no, by some terrorists. Like, really? Wow, that was fast. So yeah, elections. And again, do you want to get into this one, the one that's coming up here in 4 weeks?
I I think that's probably safely in Trump's hands now, isn't it?
Well, that's just it. That's again, okay, that your response right there is perfect because that's what they want everyone to think. It's like the 4 years ago never happened. 4 years ago, it's like, what do you mean? He's like Joe Biden, who wasn't even supposed to be the candidate, but they couldn't come up with anybody better. They bring him in. He becomes the most voted president in the history of the United States. More votes than anyone ever in history, right? Even though when we went to bed that night, and I think it was different for you guys because you guys were long asleep. But over here, it was like, oh, no. Trump was winning the five swing states. It was over. It was done. We get up the next morning, he lost.
Yeah, I
And
know.
people are
Yeah.
like, we're looking around going, what happened, right?
Postal votes.
Right, all that crap. And so people got really, really angry. And it's like, well, he'll get it this time, right? And then Biden waits till the last second. He drops out because there's no time to run primaries. They bring in Kamala, who never won a primary. And immediately within like 3 days after her, being like, well, she's the candidate, 3 days, she's already ahead. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? But now in the last week, 10 days, it's like, oh no, Trump's surging ahead. How? How is he surging ahead? What changed in the last 10 days? What, because of the debate? No. Because of some statements she made? No. What, why? Why? It is straight up propaganda. I'm calling this one, which is that night. I'm not kidding you. I'm very passionate about this because I don't vote. Is that it will be the first contested election in American history. Meaning we've had 58. This will be the 59th election, right? And we're not as old as you guys, right? So we've only had 58, 59 elections. And up until now, if you don't know what a contested election means, meaning whoever wins, the other guy's got to say, oh, okay, I concede, you won, right? It's never ever gone any differently because politicians, like, they're pressured, they're bought and sold. And so it's like, okay, you have to concede, right? And everybody concedes. Even Trump conceded last time, right?
Oh, did he?
Well, he
Uh,
did. He did, but
well,
officially it's supposed to go through the vice president, Mike Pence.
from what I've heard, Trump never really left office. He just steps aside. He he he's, he put some. I don't know if you've been watching that guy uh, Rattlesnake Trap.
I think I've seen some of his stuff.
Yeah, he talks
I
about all the executive orders that Trump put into place before before he stepped into his Mar-a-Lago place.
right.
Yeah,
I've
and
I've heard,
so he left. Apparently, he left as commander in chief,
yeah,
and Biden was taking an empty office
right.
because America is bankrupt.
Right. I heard this as well. However, my qualifier, I said, okay, yeah, I see where you might, the whole 5D chess thing, where 4D chess that supposedly Trump was coming
Or
up with.
5D, yeah.
Yeah, 5D, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all crap because I go, that's fine, but if the inauguration happens, then it's over. And the inauguration went off without a hitch, and nothing changed, and here we are 4 years later,
Yeah, but
and
even that is contested because of a gun salute that was supposed to be for the new president, and
sure,
it wasn't a gun salute. It was a funeral salute. Yes.
uh, yeah,
It, so, so,
I
so,
got you.
so there's all sorts of things going on.
I got you. I got you. Do I personally? And of course, you are entitled to your opinion on this. However,
I'm on the